In my 21 years of drumming and 15 years of teaching drums and percussion, I have seen and experienced a lot of mistakes when it comes to hand technique and just getting the most efficient sound when playing the drums. So today I'm going to address the 3 most common mistakes that I see when I'm teaching or that I've experienced in my own drumming career. The first mistake is an inconsistent approach to the drum between the 2 hands. So what this means is that our hands aren't holding the sticks the same way, they're not approaching the drum at the same angle, regardless of if you're playing traditional grip or matched grip. In order to strive for an even sound between our hands, we want to at least have a good starting point of an even grip and approach between our 2 hands. So when we're setting up to play, do both of our palms look the same? Are the fulcrums of our grip in the same spot on each of the sticks? Is our playing position the same between both of our hands? Especially if you primarily play drum set, what you're gonna find a lot, especially once you go to play grooves, is you might have what I call the left hand disease. And what that means is that when we're playing grooves and we're crossed over like this with our right hand on top, the left hand sometimes comfortably slips into this French grip approach, where we have now completely changed our wrist position on how we approach the drum. So this does mean that you need to make sure your seat is high enough and your snare drum is high enough to allow for a same consistent technique regardless of where your arms are moving on the drum set. The second most common mistake I see is people not initiating the stroke with their wrist. Now, yes, if you end up playing Moeller or some of those more advanced mechanics, some of that motion is initiated with the forearm a little bit, but for 95% of what you're going to be playing, the stroke needs to initiate from the wrist to guarantee that we're staying relaxed and using the most effective part of our muscle groups to move the stick. Especially when we go to play faster notes or go to play fills, this is where oftentimes the arms start to creep in too much and we're initiating the stroke like that and locking our wrist out. There's a big difference in the feel and the approach and the sound to drumming nice and relaxed with our wrist versus locking our wrist and doing everything with our arms. You'll hear in the second example the volume was actually much quieter because I wasn't able to generate as much velocity when moving my arms like this versus when I was able to get a good wrist rotation. On top of that, the wrists are a smaller muscle group than your arms, and so it allows you to play faster when you're utilizing smaller muscle groups. The final mistake I see in terms of hand technique is over squeezing with the back fingers when we're playing. When we're drumming, regardless if you're using a pointer finger fulcrum or a middle finger fulcrum, there is a fulcrum in place with the grip, which means that the back fingers should be relatively free to access the stick for faster notes or more delicate sounds. And if our general approach and stroke is one where the back fingers are very over squeezed, we end up with this look and sound. So not only does that feel really bad in my body, I feel all of the vibrations and shock going straight into my arms. It doesn't sound very good either. It sounds really harsh and it's kind of choking off the sound, especially on the snare drum. So whenever I drum, I'm constantly trying to remind myself, what is the minimal amount of tension required to execute this? And it typically has to do with how much your back fingers are squeezing the stick. Yes, when we're playing stuff that has accents and downstrokes, those back fingers are required to help stop the stick. But our general approach and sound when drumming should be nice and relaxed and open. When you're playing those full strokes, there should be a little bit of space in the back of your hand. versus the really closed off, over squeezed back finger approach. So I hope this lesson was helpful. I have considered making a kind of in-depth hand technique guide. If that's something that interests you, make sure to let me know down in the comments, and that'll be a nice deep dive on totally setting up your hands for success. If you appreciate the content, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.